T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, guys, another week, another podcast. Appreciate everybody who showed up today. I know we made it a last minute occasion with posting about it. So whoever's here, we're going to call you my regulars. Before we get started, trying to get better at this, but US ARC, guys, if you're not a member yet, I don't know if you renew at the beginning of the year, however you do it. If you're not, how about January 1st is your goal so you remember to do it every year? But like I said, put some time in. We got the Super Show coming up. I think that's the next big auction for US ARC. And then after that, I don't think we see him again until Tinley. So like I said, get your memberships now, guys. You'd be surprised how few people actually have them. And again, back to the Super Show. If you don't have your plane ticket yet, don't wait till last minute. If you haven't gone yet, I promise you, it's unlike any other show in the country. You're going to see things you've never seen anywhere else. It's really honestly one of my favorites, except I like the beach in Daytona. So like I said, we're going to get underway. Richard Delbono is going to sit down tonight. We're going to talk a little boas. It's been a minute. So Richard, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too, my friend.
So, I think the title kind of said it all, the make or break your boa collection. If that's even what the title was, I can't remember right now, but
it was something along those lines.
Yeah. So, viruses, man, I think the whole reason we've been sitting down today was because of a conversation we had a couple weeks ago. We were talking about, we'll say, a possible breeding loan, and you had asked me to test one of my animals. At that point, we went into detail. You talked about price points on doing it, which, I thought the price was going to be a lot higher to even get one animal tested. And then, just why we probably should. Moving forward in the hobby, I think there's a lot of different species that have had their issues with nidovirus and other viruses that have really brought down the species to an extent. I don't think anything's ever going to get knocked off the map. But talk to me a little bit about the testing process for arenavirus and IBD and just some of the research that you guys did leading up to that. Just, break it down for me a little bit.
So, as you guys know, I've been doing this a long time. I've had my share of problems, and I would say in 2013, maybe 2014 is when I really started looking hard into this and why these animals were dying and what was causing them to die and the stress factors and stuff like that. So I started working with University of Florida with some of that, and it was very expensive. Back in the day, this was very expensive, and it was kind of ground floor for reptiles. And through the years, Chad from REL Labs, I think it's Chad Lytle, I don't know his last name, I call him Chad. And him and I have been working real close together with some other breeders, and we have he has brought it down to where you could swab these animals and get a positive or negative test, which is a lot less invasive. You don't have to test their blood. You don't have to do this. It's not 100%, it's just like, I guess you can put it into like, birth control. It's not 100%, but it gives you that sense of comfort knowing that the animal is either negative or positive to make that decision in the future moving forward. Hence what we were going to do. I have a one-off animal. You have a rare animal. I would rather breed those animals together knowing that they're negative because the babies are going to be negative. And then that way, when we sell those animals, we don't have to worry about selling a high-end animal and it being positive or it having a problem.
Yeah. That was one thing that in that conversation I liked was you had talked about how you were getting these tests done for babies before selling them to the buyer.
Yeah,
I'm sure for more high-end projects, right away we'll say, so the test, how much did you say that was going to cost?
they're between $20 and $25, and it's a 24-hour turnaround. So you send the test in on Monday, a Tuesday afternoon, you get your results, and it has been very accurate with my collection and a couple other guys that I work with, and we retest. So, for example, before an animal is euthanized or put down or of that nature, we wait 6 months and test again. Okay, so if an animal comes back positive, it doesn't necessarily get euthanized. That animal is isolated and we test again in 6 months. If it comes back positive, then we make our decision from that point forward. But negative animals never test positive. In my situation and a couple other bigger guys that I work with, we have never had an animal test negative and 6 months later test positive, unless it come in contact with something with a positive, test, which that's husbandry at that point.
Hmm. Now, when you say husbandry, you're talking if you're keeping the animals in a dirty condition, it might bring the virus out if it wasn't already shedding it.
So here's the biggest transfer of arena or IBD is mites. If you don't take care of your collection, and granted, everybody has had mites, everybody knows the situation to get rid of them or whatever. I mean, I've seen 1,000 different things online about mites. The cleaner you keep your collection, and I don't mean paper towels and white gloves. I'm talking about pests, mites, water bowls you want to keep clean. Water bowls are a major transfer of disease as well, because if you don't change your water bowls or you move a water bowl to another cage or a rack system, you just transferred that. So husbandry in a whole is what I'm talking about, but it all comes down to taking care of those animals first and foremost, keeping mites out of your collection. And because mites are bloodsuckers and they move from animal to animal and they will transfer from animal to animal, and that's how they transfer diseases. And a lot of guys, I don't know if I could say a lot of guys, but I know a lot of people in the industry that are careless when it comes to things like that. Oh, it doesn't matter. Whoever gets the snake, it's on them. Not in this industry. Not in my industry.
Yeah. Which is fair. And honestly, I think anybody working with animals like you do, because, I hype you up a lot, whether when I see you or whether I'm talking to other people about you, I love what you're doing in boas right now. I like that you went directions that other people didn't go. And because of it, you created high-end projects out of those projects.
I
Also,
appreciate that.
giving people, oh no, of course, man. Also, like you said, giving the buyer peace of mind. You know, the biggest thing with anybody coming in, and we talked about this, is you don't know about the problems that you can run into until you run into them, because you probably don't get told about them, because that's not really like a sexy sell on getting into the industry, talking viruses or bacteria. Like, it almost might scare some people off. So I think we avoid a lot of those conversations.
It's a taboo subject, Dave. I mean, you got to understand, like, when people that don't want to talk about it, that shy away from it, and that are scared of it, bother me. It's not one of those conversations that I shy away from, because I have the blood, sweat, tears. I have the trials and tribulations to show for this disease. I've lost a lot of animals because of this disease, but I didn't sell my collection and get out and go work for Home Depot. I dealt with it. I put my money and time into it, and I put my knowledge into it to figure out how this can help the industry. Now, we didn't get too far, because this is a 50-50 situation right now. Some people say it's transferable. Some people say it's not. I believe it is. I think it's a virus, and if it lays dormant for less than 72 hours, it can be transferred. So, and it's only transferred fluid only. It's not airborne. In my opinion, in our research, it's not airborne. It's not like you can hold a snake up and it can get into your collection. It doesn't work that way. It has to be transferred through fluid only.
And
Water.
I remember when somebody did bring up the airborne thing, and my pushback was, if it was airborne, every ball python would die at every show you go to, because you're bound to have one sick boa in the building.
If it was airborne, Dave, they wouldn't have shows. You couldn't have a show if it was airborne, because everything would die. It's not airborne. It's fluid transfer only, mostly through breeding. and or mites and water bowls. They are the major transfers of the virus, is those three.
Passing fluids on, I've seen some larger breeding operations. I've had a conversation in the past, and this was mostly ball python related, where, breeders would take the water dish away from them during breeding and then re-put it back in afterwards, again, to stop from swap and spit, I guess is the way of putting it. But there's still going to be a fluid exchange, right, during the breeding.
A major fluid exchange. And that's what I remember a couple guys doing that, and they said this will eliminate the problem. And I'm like, that's lacking common sense, in my opinion. You take a water bowl away from breeding animals, what's the main fluid in that cage?
Yeah, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, their fluids. That's the main fluid in that cage. You can't take that away from them. So that's where the fluid transfer happens. I mean, yeah, you can limit the water bowl intake, but they're still breeding. You still have the two animals together, and there's your transfer from that point on. But that goes back to the question I had for you for the breed loan. Let's test the animal. I tested mine, he came back negative. Let's test yours, and it comes back negative. We do the breed loan, and that way when people realize we had that high-end breed loan we did, they know those animals are negative. They could test them if they want, but we don't have to. So that's why you test the parents.
Yeah, and honestly, in that conversation, for me personally, I want to test it all now.
And it's gonna surprise you, brother. I'm telling you, it's there's a lot of people out there with big heads, and they're like, oh, I don't have it in my collection. I have a closed collection. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I have a closed collection. Okay,
so
test your collection
as you should, and honestly, for $20 a piece on animals that are probably worth more than $20 a piece in your collection, it seems like a no-brainer. Like I said, I would have put that test $50 to $100, which might make someone hesitant if they got a lot of animals. Kind of hard to have an argument if you got $20 on a test or $25.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like I said, really no-brainer. I mean, the reality is, it's for some collections, it could be a single baby sale, and you could test your entire collection every year.
Exactly.
So now, here on the other side of it, because I've had a lot of conversations about, and it's kind of a lead up, cryptosporidium and leopard geckos, and how pretty much everyone in the wild is going to carry it. So when a new mutation or something comes in from the wild, you can't introduce it to your collection, but you do have a side collection that has females in it, and that will not pass on to the babies. Now, I told you before this, I hit up a few people asking, will it pass on? And when we talked about it, you made a comment that it's a 50% chance, if the mom is a carrier, 50% of the babies very well could. And that percentage could be higher, could be lower. None of them can get it. But there is still a chance. How many full litters did you guys go through to kind of get that idea?
So several years ago, we did some trial runs with some animals that came up positive, and we didn't know, do we euthanize them? Do we get rid of them now, or do we give them and a lot of the times you don't see symptoms in these animals, because when you block test or you group test, you'll take 70 to 100 animals, you'll test those animals, or because I have a lot of animals, I can't test everything at one time, so we group test. And if an animal comes back positive, it's an isolated situation, depending on the track of that animal. Was it bred? Was it in with anything? And then we go from that point on. And we did a couple breedings, and with positive females, with positive males, and some of the babies, I mean, if you want to get technical, there were small litters and there was larger litters. Half of the babies had it and half did not. And then they were retested 6 months later, and the same results.
So, the reason I brought this up, of course, is it's not a death sentence if you find out an animal that seems perfectly healthy has this going on with it. You can still put it to the side, create an environment for it away from the rest of your collection. You can still breed that animal, see what your outcome are after you test your babies, and still have something you could, whether it's put it in the market or keep for yourself and start over, it's there. Because again,
isolation,
like I said,
is the most important thing I would recommend. Is like when you figure this out, you have a dedicated position for certain animals, and you use that to your benefit. And that's the thing with this virus that spreads, and people make this big deal about it. Like a few years ago, there was this guy that was just running rampant online saying that it's going to kill everybody. And if you don't test your collection, you're a bad guy. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. People that have it are not bad people. They didn't even know they had it. The person that sold them the snake didn't know they had it. This has been in the US for 20 to 30 years. And I will tell you this, I believe it came from the wild. I believe that some animals are born with it and it has to wake up. And I think it's stress induced because during breeding season, when you introduce animals, that's their highest level of stress. That's when you see it the most, is during breeding season. So or shipping an animal is another reason it'll pop up, is if you ship an animal, and an adult, I'm talking about adults here. If you ship an adult female or an adult male, that stress factor from shipping can wake that beast up.
Okay. One thing that is a common sense thing you said to me is, if you notice a animal is, we'll say, rapidly shedding, the shed cycle in between seems shorter and shorter. I made the comment when you said that could be an animal with IBD or arena because it's trying to fix its problem.
Yes.
Which is like with any animal in reptiles. If there's an issue, whether it's on the inside or outside, a lot of times they will go into sheds. So I thought that was a unique observation because I don't keep an eye on my sheds until I need to. And really the breeding season is the only time I care about shed cycles. I don't know, and I don't know if this makes me a bad keeper. I don't know if I would even notice if an animal shed maybe a little earlier than I thought it would, unless it literally just goes right back into shed.
It's not a little earlier, and you would definitely see it. They shed and they instantly go into shed again. Like the next 2 days, you'll see blue eyes. Boom. And that is a guarantee that animal is positive for arena. That is one of the observations over the past 5, 6, 7 years that we have done. And we have seen animals that, and I've had people call me and be like, Rich, this animal keeps going into shed, man. What's going on? It's still eating. It's still doing this. It looks fine. I'm like, test it. And boom, every single time they come back positive. So,
but the shed
point,
thing's not 100% though, right? Like it's not every one of them with it's going to do that constant shedding, or have you found that?
No. So back to the decline of the animal. So most of the stuff we test, 95% of the stuff we test in a group. We don't test it because there's a problem. Over the years, we've had a few animals that showed signs of neurological issues, skin problems, the shedding problems, and those animals were tested and unfortunately came back positive. But you almost won't see anything. I mean, 95% of these animals, they don't show signs of anything. They eat, they poop, they shed, they grow, they have litters. Nothing is wrong with them until you bulk test them or group test them. You don't know. But back to your statement earlier, is the smaller the collection, the easier it is to maintain. If you have 10 or 15 snakes, you can do that every year. But when you have 500 to 1,000 animals, you have to bulk test, and you can't do all of them at one time.
So I will say, in boa collections, don't get me wrong, there are a few of us out there that maybe have too many boas. I found that most boa collections are, moderate size, maybe 20 animals tops, and that's still a lot of animals for boas. But, nothing exceeding, like in ball pythons, where your one ball python rack holds 40 females.
Yeah.
And you can put 6 of them in a room together. So right away, you have 150, 200 animals in a collection.
Yeah.
So again, I asked a lot of people leading up to this, but I didn't have long conversations. I got short responses. I got, theories thrown at me. Have you heard of anything where arena is connected to rodents, as in a rodent can carry it?
No, I have not.
That's fine. Well, we don't have to get into it, because if we haven't heard about it, we'd just be bullshitting right now.
I haven't heard about it, and nobody's approached me about it. My research has been done with a few different guys, and very, very close. And we have done a lot of testing on a lot of different animals, and rodents have never come about.
Okay. I think it was something that it might have come up in a European conversation when this was. But like I said, these were very short conversations with not enough detail. More or less just giving me things to talk to you about. So, like I said, on the bright side of things, I would definitely encourage people to consider this. And I mean, you can go ahead and throw a sales pitch in there if you want. I know you guys have been working directly on this a lot. If you'd like.
I mean, so the situation is that everybody's different. Every breeder is different. We all have our reputations, and what we sell and what we do. But it's just it's my decision, my prerogative to do that. You don't have to do it. I mean, I've talked to bigger guys that are like, nah, it's not worth it to me. If it tests positive, I'll give them their money back. Okay, well, why don't you just test the animal before you sell it? So you just skip a step.
Yeah, because I had heard certain collections that it did pop up in, and here's the reality. I'm sure just like any test that you get back that's medical, even if it was for yourself, every time that I have an overseas shipment, I have to test all my bows before they get those animals in. They want them all tested. I don't mind doing it, but I always hold my breath every time because you never really know, I guess.
I just have them test them before they come over.
Yeah. Well, me shipping over, I had a test is my point.
Oh, yeah.
I would have had.
Yeah.
Yeah. So animals leaving my facility came back negative, which gives me confidence everything else will be good. But also, we have a lot of animals here. So it always has me wondering.
It's a taboo situation, and it's always going to be that way. And there's always going to be a new kid coming into the industry that thinks he can solve it. It's not solvable. It's maintainable. And that's more important than trying to solve a problem that can't be solved. We can maintain it and learn from everything. And once again, there was a couple breeders the last few years that did the wrong thing. They found out they had it, and they sold animals in their collection to try to limit all of that situation. And, they were outed. They got what was handed to them, but that's just the wrong way to do business, not even in reptiles, just in anything.
So could agree with you more.
If you know you have it, do not sell animals from that group or those babies or whatever the situation may be. Take precautions, and you do what you need to do as a breeder.
So that's one thing that we have little control over is the ethics of other breeders. So not that we all need to be put in check, but I always talk about like in ball pythons, when I bought my first het pied and het albino like in 2002, it came with a certificate, a picture of the animal, a picture of the parents, everything was good. I would say somewhere around like the early teens, we kind of stopped doing that. And then all of a sudden it seemed like people were getting fucked on hets again all of a sudden. So having a certification with the boa constrictor saying, hey, this is a clean, healthy animal, congratulations, $20. And again, most of the animals we sell that are worth testing, not that a cheap animal isn't worth testing, but if we're selling a $500 animal, what's $20?
I look at it this way, and I've had people tell me they don't agree with me. There's no such thing as a cheap animal. You have a $20 boa or you have a $20,000 boa. It's still an animal. It still eats the same, sheds the same, does the same. But we have made this industry, we have commercialized this industry to focus on money. And once again, I look at snakes differently. I feed a $20 boa the same way I feed a $20,000 boa. And there are guys that do not do that. They maintenance feed that boa and they power feed that boa. Mm-hmm. And I've never understood it. Maybe that's why my reputation is different than other guys.
So that's one thing that, to be honest, it would probably have been better if I fed my ball pythons more, not equally, when it came to the high-end projects. There were certain things I had around that were probably worth considerably more than the other, but I feed like this in a cycle. I don't go here and then back to here. It's always a cycle. So, whether we're talking about maintenance feeding boas or just doing a consistent weekly meal of ball pythons, if they're willing to take it, that one ball python that maybe I should have thrown 2 or 3 rats to, I've never really had that mindset. Yeah. Also, boa constrictors, as these animals, you just can't rush them.
No.
We have got away with it in the past. The next podcast coming up, we talked about had Rich Islandly this week with Warren Booth. Luckily, you stepped in, and I'll be doing that next week. But I don't know if you remember the VHS that him and Tracy did back in the day, and he talked about some of his early animals. He got up to breeding size in 18 months for females.
Oh, yeah.
And, there was like a wow factor in that video. And, the reality is back in 2000, like that wow factor for a hobby that was kind of new and, we wanted to get there fast. The wow was, wow, I couldn't believe I can do that. Let me give that a shot. Where now, I don't really think we're thinking that way, at least in the boa community.
There's a handful of people that are still that way, but it's just not healthy for the animal.
Yep.
And the older the animal, the better the litter, the healthier the babies.
Yeah.
The more mature the animal is. This
No,
is more
100%.
pertaining to the females. I mean, you could breed males at 18 months to 2 years with no problem, but females are 3 to 4 years. Depending on Central Americans, you could breed a little bit earlier, but that's around 3 years old and all the way to, 4 to 5 years.
Yeah. And it wasn't necessarily like, I'm not really coming at breeding a female in 18 months as a negative. I think that in the early stages of this hobby, we were just kind of figuring out what we could do.
Oh yeah.
But the reality is
a lot
that
of
never
research and development.
Yeah. So where we knew we could do it, the reality is that never really became the industry norm. And that never was necessarily the norm for Rich and his breeding.
Right.
I'm pretty sure he clarified right after that in the early days, they're just trying to figure out how the gene worked and everything. They wanted to work faster. So I can't blame him for a thing like that. And, if somebody gets a female up to size, like, I told you about that like 4-pound Colombian I bred last year because on the ultrasound, it showed that she was developing follicles.
Yep.
And she was at about 6 years old, 5-6 years old. And I put a male in late, and she gave me 16 or 18 slugs. I have girls that are 20 pounds that sometimes don't even give me 20 babies.
Yep.
So, like, the fact that she had that in her, now, I've been like, curious on the size of my babies. If she was able to, like, go full term, I don't think that would have killed her by any means. But would my babies been considerably smaller because mom was considerably smaller? Would they have been a normal sized baby?
They would have been much smaller. The females depict on what they do. So if you have a monster female, 8 feet, 9 feet, she's going to throw 45 babies, but those babies are going to be big. And whereas if you have Central Americans or even the smaller Colombians, they're going to throw smaller litters and smaller babies, proportional size. I mean, you're not going to have a 4-pound female throw a 2-foot baby. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. No. I was going to say a lot of this is foreign to me because the idea of slow growing was something that I kind of adopted around like 8 years ago. So all those animals now are just hitting, just now going into rotation, which is crazy. Like I said, thank God I had so many other distractions because if I just bought a few animals and waited 7 years, I don't think I could do it. Unless we're talking like green anacondas or something.
You're going to have a killer year this year breeding those older females. Healthier babies, bigger not bigger litters, but bigger, healthier, fatter babies from those females because they're older, more mature females.
No, I have a lot of confidence in them. And I will say last year, I think would have been the first year that I bred my first smaller female. When we're talking the 5-pound range, it's 5, 6, 7 years old. And I think last year, I'll have to check. It was either 2 or 3 females that I bred for the first time. All 3 of them or all 2 of them went first right out the gate. We'll see what happens this year. I'm in the same boat, but a lot more smaller females this year. Like I probably have at least 20 females going in rotation for the first time this year.
Good. Fingers crossed for you.
Pretty stoked. Like I said, I have some early ovulations. I have some things I'm going to look forward to, but investment projects is the way I want to put it. I always love the pastel lineages. I like stacking some of them, even though some, in my opinion, are not really compatible with others. They reduce each other down, in my opinion. Do you think there is a value still on me stacking pastel lineages into VPI? Or is that day past where people won't pay the extra money like I once did for a red rum at 5,000 when a VPI by itself was only 1,000?
So, all right. So stacking pastel traits, genes, it's a good idea if the animal is going to inhabit those traits. Like if you put that into a bunch of dark animals, it's not going to justify it. But with the VPIs, even the T negatives, like if you look at a Coops Pastel Raptor, an albino, they're phenomenal. I mean, the pinks and oranges and reds that pop out of those are just insane. because that Cooper's Pastel is such a deep, dark red pastel. It's not like the Pastel Dream, which is very pinky, very pastel-y. Whereas the Cooper is much more contrast and dark. Red Rum, much more contrast and dark. So the VPI, yeah, but the price points are just not going to be there with the VPIs. The VPI, in my opinion, is the every man's snake. It's in every household. It's and so it should be. It's been around the longest, so it should be out there. But the way to make money on the VPI's projects are to put different genes into them. A normal VPI is not going to pull what it pulled 10 years ago. If it has 4 extra genes in it, it will. But once again,
extra genes, yes. Pastel is where I'm hung up. And I know, this is you giving me tough love because I know how you feel about VPI deep down. Like, I know it's a take it or leave it project for you at this point, and that's fair.
I mean, I have them, I breed them, but I don't, it's not one of my passions. I do it because I need that coloration in some of the other projects.
Yeah. Well, how about this? I'll throw some examples out just because then you could tell me, hey, man, maybe you should do something different. Some of the lineage I'm working with is some of the Manny animals, some of the flamingo stuff directly from him. I think he had the red tiger, which I think was really a mix of flamingo and something else. I don't know for sure. I never really got an explanation
the red tiger
on
came
that.
from Germany.
Okay, so that was kind of its own pastel lineage.
Yep.
All right, so I got some of that, and then there was some stuff. I think Red Panther was on a couple labels, but I think that was a mislabel. Was that a thing? Okay. So I think Ferrari and Flamingo, if they aren't the same, would complement each other very well because I think that there's still that same density of pastel where Summit is one of those. Yeah, but Summit wouldn't complement. And I will say with that Red Tiger, I like the red tigers. I've got that one hypo jungle red tiger over here. I show you every once in a while. She's just
I know that animal, and it's phenomenal. And that thing is going to throw some fire babies.
Yeah. So I was staring at her and looking at what VPI males I have, and I'm stuck with a lot of jungles, and I don't really see the value in putting an IMG into that project right away. I could just first generation baby into an IMG if necessary, but I don't think it's going to really get me anywhere special.
No.
It would be cool if over time we could put so much pastel into a VP or an IMG VPI that maybe it fights through some color, but I'm not there yet. I did that cherry litter to the high-tech VPI a few years ago, and every baby came out like cotton candy pink. I think I'm going to take the pick of the litter male high-tech from that and put that on that female, even though I'm making pos sets for VPI. I don't know if there's anything that I have in my collection male-wise that's even worthy enough to touch her if it wasn't him.
Celtic and VPI look really good together.
I do have a Celtic male put to the side that I was going to put in a breeding this year. I thought about maybe putting him on a Key West Het VPI. It might be nonsensical, but I kind of just want to see what those patterns we're going to do together.
That would do really, really well. The pattern and the color on those two animals would be phenomenal. Celtic VPIs are really, really good looking as adults. They don't lose their contrast. They do not lose their color. They're phenomenal looking as adults. I would recommend Celtic or Inca.
Okay, I could do that Celtic male on her because I do think she's dominant hypo anyways. So I don't know if I want to double down on the hypo again. Like I said, I brought him out the other day. He's a virgin, but he's about 3 years old now, so this will be his first go. I don't hate that.
Fine. As a 3-year-old virgin, he should be perfectly fine.
Do you really, out of all the ladderback circle tails, is Celtic even that hype anymore compared to what it used to be? Because I think the real hype around that was the Smoke Project or the possibility of producing that boa.
Well, the circleback ladder tails, there's so many of them out there, and only a few of them actually do due diligence to their projects. Incas, Celtics, Raptors. So those are my top 3 circleback ladder tails: are the Inca, the Celtic, and the Raptor. And I've done a lot with all 3 of those animals, and I'm telling you, they're very similar when it comes to production and combination stacking.
Mm-hmm.
Aztec is another one. If you put Inca into Aztec, it really transforms the animal into something brand new. It doesn't look like either one. But I mean, the Celtic, the smoke is cool, but You know, 50% of the smokes are going to have problems, you know, just like the super motleys. They get the flat heads and they have the tongues that come up over their head. And then 50% of them are fine. So you're going to have your naysayers out there that are like, oh, it's a bad breeding. It's detrimental. It's not. It's really not. It's not all the babies come out like that. And the byproduct of that pairing, the normals are phenomenal. Like I've got a couple animals from a Celtic smoke litter that'll blow your mind.
No, I never, and you know, anything you've ever seen with Celtic and Sharp over the years has always been more colorful, but I know the Europeans use a lot of purple line in that when they did it, so of course you're going to get a better looking animal. I guess I really wonder the strength too of that project because, tell you the truth, the male that I held back, it's because I had him on Morph Market for a year and a half and no one bought him, and I kept reducing the price, and eventually I just took him down because he got so big. When something like that happens, you know, I always tell people if it doesn't sell, don't fucking hold it back. If nobody wanted it in the first place, they're not going to want you to make more of them. So that is kind of my hang up too on using that male on a nicer female, because is that actually lowering the investment of the project because Celtic might scare a buyer off?
Well, Celtics are not going to scare a buyer off. Just because you have a Celtic doesn't mean you're going to get a smoke. Just don't breed it to a motley.
Oh, no, smokes to the side. I just wonder if the pattern is not good enough. Like, is it not?
I think the Celtic is an investment quality animal. Now, good ones. Now, once again, everything is varied, right? Everything is graded A, B, and C. So I've seen jungles on Morph Market that people say that the best jungles they've ever seen, and I have normals that look better. And then I've seen some super, super nice jungles that are devalued. So same with the Celtic. If it's a really good looking Celtic that has the circle back ladder tail, the super good contrast in the squares and the saddles, it's going to produce it. But if it's a gray area and you don't know really what it is, for example, I was at a buddy's house yesterday. He bred raptor to raptor and didn't get any supers. He was confused. I said, no confusion. One of the parents is not a raptor. It's very simple. Yeah. So we distinguished which one was a raptor and which one wasn't. It made sense. That's why he didn't get supers. So it's just one of those things. You know what I'm saying? Whereas the Celtic, I have quite a few Celtic animals. I'm breeding some really cool Celtic Key West IMGs this year. And I think those are going to be really, really neat because they're both super patterned animals. And, you know, like I said, when you're stacking the Incas, the Aztecs, the Raptors, and the Aztecs, you're taking these really powerful patterned animals and you're combining them together.
Have you found another pattern to go with Celtic that you think really works together? Like, you know, I know Inca and Aztec's a bad example. You like jungle in that? Why do you like it?
Like I said, I'm going to show you some Celtic jungles and they'll blow your mind.
Okay, that's fair. I've seen general ones. I've seen them at the shows over the years. I might be mixing them up with some Key West jungles I've seen, but I remember them being nice, but I just don't remember them being over the top, I guess is the way to put it. But you got better is what you're saying.
Key West will typically fade the pattern and stretch it. All right. It's a pretty snake, but it'll still keep that little fade. Whereas a Celtic, it's very bold and contrasty. It hits hard. Like, it doesn't stretch the pattern as much. It's very circle back. It's very ladder tailed, and the contrast is vibrant. The Key West is pretty too, but I think the Celtic is more of a contrasty, bolder pattern.
Okay, I think put it. Some reason when I think of what a Celtic jungle should look like, I think of the Domino Project.
It's very simple. Here, hold tight.
Yeah, take your time, man. You're good. And MJ, you know, if you're in the background playing God, when he puts that on the screen, if you want to make it big, feel free. You go ahead, Rich. Sometimes I talk to myself. But, you know, and like I said, it's just the fact that I had that Celtic online for, like I said, at least a year and nobody even messaged me on it really is a little put off. But again, it's a beautiful animal.
All right, so this has IMG in it. I really don't have a lot of animals without IMG. But once again, this is the Celtic Hypo Jungle IMG.
Okay, so one thing I was going to bring up with the Celtic project, because I have the female holdback from that, and it's a Pink Panther, Sunglow, Celtic reduced the pattern down to nothing. Like nothing
Well,
connected anymore, but the color was unbelievable.
yeah, and once again, these animals are graded. This is an A grade animal. I have another one that I'll show you that the pattern looks like puzzles.
Okay. It almost looks like blood boa. All right, that's tight. And honestly, the back pattern looks good on that. I like that it's all connecting the way, especially with the hypo being in it.
Yeah.
How much
So
do you
this
think
is
the
a
ING's
Celtic.
influence in that?
Yeah, the pattern on these animals, if you look at them, when you add the jungle to the Celtic, it really does make it look like art, like a painting.
Yeah. No, one more Rich Eiley plug. And if anybody has that VHS, or if you don't, I'm sure you can still buy it from Tracy Barker today. But you remember at the end of that video when he was going through that room of holdbacks and he was just pulling out all these like different ones that had like different color tones to it. He had those ones that the tail almost looked like it was that beadwork in like Indian tribes. I don't know what they call that, but it was just pixelated and beautiful. And he had two of them and he was showing them side by side. I don't think I ever saw another one quite like those ever again. But he was talking about the possibility of line breeding traits like that. The cotton candy I know was something I remember him popping up, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen a boa quite like that one, except for maybe like the jigsaw tail.
Yeah, that's an interesting animal for sure.
Yeah. So why do you think no one's gone the jigsaw route yet?
I think it's a weak trait, to be honest with you. I think combining those animals together, it just creates a weak animal and they can't breed. I know a couple of them in Germany or in the UK over there that they're adults, but they're not having success breeding them.
Well, the early Roswell laddertail stuff didn't breed very well, at least. But then later on, I've seen breeders.
Right.
Same thing we talked about with the Marins. I still want to make supers. I'm going 2 litters. I'm trying this year. I got one female building really good right now. The other girl went from like 6 to 10 over last month. I'll probably introduce a male, wait about 2 weeks after, check her again. But I do believe I'm going to have a fighting chance as long as my animals are Marins because they look really good. But I think that's the problem again with that project is a lot of those Marins are just pastels that got put in the mix.
That's exactly the problem with the Marin project. There's only a couple guys that are actually focusing on the Marins that have real Marins. And a lot of these guys that produce Marins and they're not Marins. Back in the day, what was his name? Bjorn or Jorn, right? What was his name?
Are you talking about the guy overseas or the North Carolina guy?
No, the North Carolina guy was Gray Russian. I'm talking about the guy that actually brought the ones over to the U.S. I think his name was Bjorn or something. I don't know. But he started the Marin project, then Gray took it over. Gray did a ton of stuff with the Marins, and then it just kind of filtered into the industry from that point on. But nobody's really bred a super that I know of. I know people have tried, and I know people that have them, and nobody's been successful with supers. I think there was one in Canada a few years ago. Maybe I'm thinking about something else. But I'm pretty sure that the Super Marin has not been produced from a super.
Okay. Oh, a super was produced from a super, but has a super bred at all. So
Not
nothing
that I
out of
know
super.
of. Not that I know of.
All right. That's what I thought you said. Well, other than Jeff Ronnie talking about the male he had, and I think the last update I had is when the animal was 9 years old. That could have been 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Such a striking animal, though, man. Like, really disappointed if there's not a way to make it work.
They're absolutely. They look like a pastel blood, is what they look like. They look like a red with red eyes, and they just have that really cool pastel trait to them, which is the Marin, and they look like a blood boa.
Yeah, and pretty sure there was nice white around the border of the tail on some of the babies I saw, if I remember right. Yeah. Do you think the Sangria was just another super Marin, or do you think the Sangria was its own thing?
Me personally, I think it was another super Marin. It happened. Okay. It was too coincidental, and the timing was just too close together.
I probably brought this up in the past, but the breeder that got that, I believe, was a California breeder, and his first year he bred a Sterling to it. And I want to say that original Sangria was a female, right?
Yep.
I remember seeing that pairing. But again, after that, and that was probably, shoot, man. I think that was almost 14, 15 years ago, honestly, because I think I had
Yeah,
just got married and I was like 25 years old.
yeah, yeah. That was a long time ago. I remember all that when that was the big hype, and a lot of people were wondering if it was a Marin, if it wasn't a Marin. The guy was marketing it as its own separate gene. It was a recessive trait and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't get involved in it.
No, well, you couldn't. There was just the one animal, and sometimes that's
Hmm.
available. But it would still have been nice because it kind of had that blood vibe. But like you said, the timing with the Marin, the Super Marins going on, it could have
Yeah,
very well just been another Super Marin.
for
Um,
sure.
I think I remember before there was a Scoria boa. Do you remember the Scoria boa import that came in? I think it was in a magazine.
I do remember that. It was in Reptiles magazine, and I don't remember. Did it come in from was it a Panama shipment or was it a Colombian shipment?
That I don't remember. That's a good question though, and if anybody knows the answer, make sure to let one of us know. But
I
it
want
could
to
have
say it was
been.
a Panamanian shipment.
Well, how many Panamanian shipments? Okay, how about this? Back then, was that common for animals to come out of there? And nowadays, do they even take animals out of there?
No, not nowadays, but yes, back in the day, um, import export was big out of Panama, Colombia, Nicaragua, stuff like that. I mean, the first hypo was Panamanian. Um, so
Well,
you
now
know,
when you're referring to the first hypo, or you're not talking about the salmon, or are you talking about the
no,
salmon boat?
no, I'm talking about the orange tails. They're all Panamanian.
I thought so. And was that an animal that I think, if I remember the story right, I don't remember the gentleman's name that was getting on a plane, but he saw it on a fence near the
Yeah,
runway and walked over
yeah,
and picked it up or something?
yeah,
Yeah, I love that. What are the chances?
yeah.
Um,
Where were we when all this happened? I mean, we were null and void
hey,
back in the day. I mean, everything is so fine tooth combed now. We can't get anything coming out of Colombia.
no. And, when you talk about oh, well, here's a good question, though, because the orange tail hypo and then you have the salmon hypo. They're
Hmm.
kind of like their own little thing, arguably. But even Rich Eiley had thought that the original salmon might have been a Panamanian animal. Am I right?
And it still might be. I mean, there's still. I mean, just because he had the first, it doesn't really mean, where it originally came from was right or wrong. I, I mean, look at the Pearl Island boas. They're naturally hypomelanistic boas. So you just really don't know where something would have come. I don't know of a pure Colombian hypo that's ever come out of the wild.
No, but Jeff Ronnie, back on his website, I want to say in the early to mid 2000s, he was advertising a pure hypo. I don't remember the exact price. It might have only been around $1,000. But I think at the point that he was showing that offer on that time, I think hypos were probably just a couple $100s or a few $100s. Maybe it was hard for people to justify spending a little extra money on another hypo just because it was pure Colombian. Where
That's that's
nowadays,
that's valid.
yeah, but no, I'll have to ask him about that. But I'm 99% sure that I remember him advertising a pure line of hypo back in the day for Colombian. Oh man, have you ever repeated the pairing for cookies and cream, or was it just that one time?
I have two projected litters right now. We actually just looked at one yesterday that she should be ovulating any minute, and it's a sunset het cookies to a actual ghost jungle. So we're hoping that we get some jungle cookies.
Okay, I like that. Um, is there a certain percentage that you feel you need of Hog Island blood in that to look as good as it does, or do you think there's going to be room to kind of have a little less or a little more?
So here's the deal with Hog Island, and you know this. It, you the percentage really doesn't need to be there. The Hog Island influence is so strong when it hits certain animals, you really don't have to have a 25 or a 50%. I mean, a lot of people lie on their numbers. They'll be like, oh, it's 50% hog. Well, technically it can't be because mom was only 50% hog.
Mhm.
So I don't really worry about the numbers too much. I go with what the animal looks like, but most of my hog are very high percentage when I breed that stuff into it because I've been doing it for so many years. So I'm able to bring the percentage up every generation, F1, F2, F3. So after your F4 generation, you're getting into the high 75%. So, but you can take a 25% hog and a 75% hog, and they look just alike.
Yeah. So we've talked about it in the past, but I remember seeing the animals that kind of started that for you. And I remember when I saw those in person the first time, you could have put a VPI sun or snow glow next to it, and you wouldn't know the difference. Like it was that fucking nice, and the price didn't necessarily reflect what it would cost you to get a snow glow.
No, I called them the poor man's snow glow, and everybody that had come over, they were like, "Is that a snow glow?" I'm like, "Nope, it looks better than a snow glow in my opinion." And that was the original. We call him the OG. We still have him, and he started everything. So this is actually his grandson breeding this female right now. So we're really looking forward to this litter. We're looking for some really bright whites and blacks out of these IMGs.
It's cool. I like that. So I do have 2 bootleg pairings that I'm hoping for this year to make something similar to what you had. I did that pairing a few years ago where it was labeled, I believe it was Frank Martin stock, and it was an Anery Jag. Little bit speckly, but not like that. Yeah, not a crazy jaguar like pattern. So I just call it a jag because it's not a jaguar. But it might be, I don't know, man. But I bred a hypo Hog Island cross that ended up being had Anery, which I think I knew that going into those. I wouldn't have done the pairing. And I got a lot of really nice reduced pattern animals, like almost no dorsals. Yeah. So I held back my favorite 2, the best male and the best female. The female still raising up, of course. The male, I had planned on just putting on a, I think it's a IMG Ghost Het Sharp, maybe. I'm not really looking to go the snow route. I don't really want to do the sharp route with that.
Right.
But I will get super hypos, of course, in there. But when I brought up the percentage thing earlier, I remember when I first posted that litter and I referred to it as sunset, I had people jump in the comments and say they weren't sunset because there wasn't enough Hog Island blood in the pairing to consider it a sunset.
Right.
So my concern is if there is truth behind me needing more Hog Island blood in that to make what might look like a cookies and cream, I might make a bootleg cookies and cream this year that's just not as good as what you've made.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like I said, I started with the original animals, so my percentages are going to be higher than anybody out there. But those animals you produced, I remember seeing those at the Atlanta show, and they were phenomenal. Whether they be the Jaguar trait or the Hog Island trait doing that, which could have been a combination of both. Those were some really good looking animals. Adding IMG into that is only going to increase the contrast. They will not go black like a Ghost IMG. They won't do it. They stay white and black.
Okay, good. I do have high hopes for that. And talking, I'm gonna jump right into fire too, man. Like, how much are you doing fire now? Like, you like ignoring the leucistic part and really incorporating into a lot of projects yet, or are you kind of just dabbling in it?
Yes, I mostly ignore the Lucy part of it, and I just try to go for the contrast in the fires. But this year I've got a couple other projects that are from Italy that I have no choice but to go for the super. So we're trying a new line of T-positive fire jungle kind of situation to see what it's going to do. And I have no choice but to go for the super because it's a fire to a fire. So, but I still want to see the outcome of that and, the byproduct too. So with the central fire stuff that I produced in the past, I do a lot of the T-positive, the platinum fires. They come out really orangey and pink. And the byproduct from those are the supers you really can't do much with other than sell them as a leucistic because you don't know what other genes are involved. Unless you have IMG into it, whereas you could see that the IMG influence in a super fire in certain animals. Not all super fire IMGs are black and white. So
one animal that really wowed me, surprisingly, was just simply the ghost fire.
Yeah, that's a beautiful
that column. Yeah, that column of color on the side, like the white and working its way up, just like that one import that Jeremy Stone had at the end there before it was lost.
Yeah.
What do we call that one again? It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember right now.
Man, I don't remember. I want to say pixel, maybe.
maybe. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to
I
look
could
that
be
up.
wrong, but that's the only thing that jumped out.
I still got the vivarium. I like to bring this up. That vivarium where in the back of the magazine, it was back in the day where you'd have like a best in show. And like,
Yeah.
I think first prize was a pastel ball python, second prize was a pastel ball python, and third prize was that boa or some shit at the show.
Yeah.
But no, I remember that. It was a baller animal. It's unfortunate we didn't get there. But, the reason I bring that up is, I've made suggestions of other projects you work with that I thought maybe a ghost fire could really take it up a notch. In the cookies and cream realm, do you think fire could be something that could be incorporated into that could change in a way where like maybe that column of color wouldn't take a lot of blacking on the base?
That's actually on deck for next year.
Okay, tight. I'd like to hear that. I sold a hypo firehead anery before I saw the visual, and the customer that I sold to has done some stuff with it. I almost want to send him a mail at this point because I want to like take it up a notch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we've got a couple animals that we're going to be putting into the CNC project next year, which fire is one of them. And I think it is going to enhance the color and also pull the white much higher up onto the sides.
Yeah. Have you ever done a pairing, saw the outcome in your head, and then it just come out so incredibly different that you almost felt a little dumb afterwards?
Oh, every year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been so many projects that I put on paper and said, I'm the only one that can do it. I'm going to do it and see what happens. And 50% of the time, you guys will see it, and 50% you won't. So you don't always hit a home run with these combinations. You don't always hit a home run with genetics. Like, I mean, I can't even give you an example. Like the T positive blood IMG, like the central T positive blood IMG. I assumed it was going to be a purple snake when I produced it back in the day, and it just isn't. It turns into a chocolate Ghirardelli, solid, chocolate colored snake.
So, I remember the goal in ball pythons was a blue or purple snake, and I remember the first thought was a super cinnamon banana was going to get you to a blue animal, and it ended up coming out kind of like gray, so on and so forth. It didn't really look that good. Do you think there's a way in boas? Because I know we don't really have like a lot of complex colors. Like it would be very difficult for us to figure out a project where you can even get close to. Well, I don't want to say that because with the black-eyed anery, man, you can get some blues.
I have. I'm going to show you something that I've really never showed anybody. I think I posted a picture of them when they were born. The Da Vinci T Snows. So they're a little over a year old now, and they are like this crazy color. They're not like a normal caramel color.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a bit different than I thought it would look. And that's type 2 anery?
No. So here's the kicker. These animals were found at a pet store back in, I want to say like 2011. And I've worked with this project. Mom passed away. She had 11 babies for me. I kept 2 of the visuals, bred those back, and their mother's 12 years old. So there was 2 snows, 2 T positives, and 2 aneries in the litter. They're not type 2. They're not black-eyed anery. They're not silver bullets. So I'm pretty sure we're dealing with a brand new line of anery, which I will find out not this year, but next year if the type 2 is compatible with it. It just doesn't look the same. Like, look at this is a snow. Excuse me. This is a snow, which it's an anery albino, but it's a Da Vinci T positive. So it's the albino line that I have. And
I remember these babies, by the way, because I remember you sending me these.
Yeah, so this is an actual albino Da Vinci. They don't look like Costa Rican Ts. They don't look like any Nicaraguan T positive. They really don't. They have their own look.
No, I do like the animals. I always wondered about that when you first started talking about the Da Vinci's early in the day. I didn't know if that was kind of like the common T positive with like your twist of
No.
pastel in there. I was just misunderstood in the beginning.
Nicaraguan has been bred into these. VPI has been bred into these. They are not compatible with anything but themselves. And they are super dwarfs. I mean, I have some 4-year-olds that are eating like adult mice.
Yeah, I love that. We were talking retics a little bit, I think, the other night, and I made the comment that, if you could create more dwarf retics that look like these crazy mainland morphs, I could see more people maybe wanting to buy into the species. Same thing with boas, the more you work on these, I don't know, true dwarfs, or however we want to consider it, but dwarf boas, I could see more people willing to work with something that they don't think is going to get too big. And I'm sure you've had that mindset while doing these projects over the years.
So I do a lot of shows, and I talk to a lot of people. I get a lot of feedback, and a lot of people are going to smaller animals, period. Not necessarily boas, just in general. They want a smaller animal to feed, to house, to litter size, clutch size. And we've kind of dubbed the term pocket boas. I do a lot of small breedings. You've seen my litters, you've seen my females, and I just do a lot of smaller stuff, smaller litters, smaller food, smaller enclosures. And we call them pocket boas. And a lot of people, they invest into those animals and have great success with them. I got a guy in Daytona that had 4 litters last year from pure Central Americans, and he's ecstatic because he can keep them in a V70 rack and not have any problems.
Yeah. Well, the problem is I slept on a lot of that stuff, but also it's not that I necessarily slept on it either. The last 10 years have been so good for the dwarf boas. Even you could almost say the last 15, but like, especially the last 10, like it's peaking hard. And as much as I love the Colombians, I made the comment, we had the fire come in X amount of years ago. We had the labyrinth come in X amount of years ago. And I'm sure there's been a couple things since that are maybe we're talking about, but for the most part, the Nexus was discovered in a collection.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really get anything, and I don't really think that the other ones are getting more at the moment, but man, it seems like there's a lot more stuff going on with dwarf boas over Colombians at this point.
Well, people are realizing that they stay smaller. They're easier to feed, easier to take care of. Yeah, they might have a slight attitude problem, but that's on the handler. I mean, I could show you Colombians that'll bite your face off. So it's like, it's all on the handler at that point. The more you handle these animals, the more you care for these animals, the less they're going to bite you. I don't believe Central Americans are any more aggressive than Colombians.
I think they're all the same, like you said, but I will say that I feel like a Colombian right off the bat is usually a lot easier than a Central American. I always joke around. I feel like the dwarf boas have the Napoleon complex, and they're just going to put on a lot of attitude early on.
Yeah.
Where I think
it's the little
Colombians,
man syndrome. It's true. Right at birth, they're very aggressive, and you got to think about anything. You're born, and the first thing that happens is you have this monster animal coming over you trying to eat you. That's all you think, and that's all they can understand. So you have to let that animal know that it's okay, and you're not going to eat it.
No, it's a proper reaction. So I got a question about your baby tubs. Are you doing clear baby tubs or gray baby tubs?
Clear.
All right, good. Have you ever not done clear with boas?
No, I've always had clear. We build our own racks. We do everything in house. I like the clear tubs better.
Yeah.
These are the V18s. Our rack systems are fully enclosed, so we don't use hide boxes. It's one of those situations where we have better success doing it this way rather than having a skeletal rack. The heat is much better on these racks than a skeletal form rack. So, I mean, Freedom Breeder and ARS has come out some really nice baby racks, but we've kind of molded and conformed this to our collection, what works for us.
It's a nice flex to have ARS or Freedom Breeder racks, but when it comes to baby boas, I would probably prefer a PVC and, like you said, the V18 tub.
Yeah.
I think, I do like the polycarbonate option that they give you. We always talk about Junior at JMG. all those adult breeders are in the 50-40 series. They do the polycarbonate. I think that looks great. I think it's a species that needs the light cycle coming in. You know, I think we've proven that ball pythons spend a lot of time getting away from the light, and they're okay in those darker bins. But I feel like if you put a boa, especially a baby boa, in a darker bin and then you open it, a lot more startling for the animal. Like, I think it needs that movement in the room, in my opinion, where it's not constantly surprised when you open the bin.
And that's the main factor when we did this, is we didn't want to startle these animals more than they already are. And that's why we use clear tubs. Even my 70s are clear, and I have windows in my 4-footers as well. So the less you could startle these animals, the more comfortable they're going to be, the less aggressive they're going to be as well. And we just have really good luck doing it this way.
Now, if it works, like I said, you see all the dark gray tubs all the time now. I think even Freedom Breeders doing the vision tubs, and you almost see everybody buying them in gray. But, you know, that's a high percentage of ball python guys. You know, again, I think every species should be treated differently, especially when it comes to the equipment. And a general baby tub isn't general for everything. Like
I agree.
Baby ball pythons do fine in a clear V18. They do better in a gray V18, in all honesty. That, you know, the extra darkness does help with their feeding habits. But, you know, like I said, boas, you know, it's not really that nocturnal of a species, so I don't see why we'd be taking light from it. So keeping your boas in dark containers, you might want to reconsider.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go with the guys that have success. They have a good track record in this industry. I've been doing it a long time. I have a lot of success. There's a lot of other guys as well, but these are things that I do personally to make my collection better, healthier, easier to take care of. It's not necessarily going to work for somebody else just because it works for me, especially somebody in New York. It's not going to work the same in New York as it is down in Florida. You know that.
No. And like you, I mean, I know you keep a lot of your stuff on paper, but it's also humid as hell down in Florida. So you can get away with that, where a guy in New York probably couldn't get away with keeping his animals on paper unless he has some kind of humidifier in his room that's bringing that up for him.
Correct.
So, you know, you have a lot of animals. I manage a lot of my breeding with the ultrasound, but I also try not to be too dependent on the ultrasound. Are you seasonal breeding your stuff, or are you messing with the ultrasound a little bit?
I have done both, and I have had more success seasonal breeding than year-round breeding.
Okay.
Because I truly believe that Mother Nature has a hand in this. And we can only commercialize and trick these animals so much. But I have done that. I have done years where I've done the ultrasound, and I've bred year-round, and I've had litters in every month of the year. But they weren't as solid and healthy as I would have if I started breeding in, let's say, October, November. And then using that window of opportunity, those few months where boas breed, and then when they have their babies in the spring, they're just much healthier, and it seems like it's a much natural occurrence that way.
So I know we've gone into this on detail. I'm sure people have heard us say this, but, like, you know, I like the baseline. You know, I mentioned that DPI snow female I have out there. I missed her ovulation 2 years in a row because she wants to ovulate in October. Yeah. And I'm not really thinking about pairing in September or August with a lot of those animals. I'm kind of like thinking about it, but I'm not quite there yet.
Right.
And I don't think some of those early pairings really benefit the males, especially if the female is not quite there. But at the same time, I do think that cycling the male in and maybe cycling them out and back in again will kind of get some building with your females. I think that works in a lot of species, but, you know, like I said, I can write up, you know, a list of, let's say, 40 boa constrictors, and I can show you where my follicle development is right now. And I had my first ovulation, I want to say, over a month ago. And when I talked to Vin about that in New York, he was blown away. I had one that early.
Right.
But that could have also been a late season for some people. But now, like I said, I'm around 8 ovulations in, and I have a lot of girls in the 20s. I got a lot of girls just stuck at 10, and I have some girls that haven't even got out of 6 yet.
All right.
And my
so
6, yeah.
I can help you. So,
well, I don't want it all at once for the record.
50 girls yesterday, and a lot of them were stuck at 6. There was a lot in between 6 and 12. What are you doing for your girls that are stuck?
I ain't doing shit. Like
Feed
I'll be
'em.
straight with you, man. Well, here's the thing. Like, we talk about my feeding habits and, where I did do a lot more seasonal feeding I talked about for years. The last couple of years, I haven't been doing it as seasonal. I haven't really been doing that starvation for a month or two. Like, I've been a little more consistent. I might lay off a little bit here or there, but I've almost been maybe too consistent, I guess, now that I've got everything up to size. Um, I do understand the food cycling will get you there, but I also have a female fire motley that's a fucking beast. Way too big. I got her too big. I shouldn't have done it. But it was an animal that already came in big. I know that I don't even have to mess with her for another 4 months because she normally ovulates around like June for me.
Right.
And now, again, that's a late season or again, a very early season, depending on how you want to look at it.
It all depends on who's doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, but so, and I don't mind that they stagger out the way they do, but when you make the argument about Mother Nature and how this is, instinctual almost sometimes, let's say, I don't really know if I believe in them cycling like that anymore. Like, I believe that we are so many generations captive bred, and I brought this up before, that I think a lot of these are on their own timelines now. And I will say, when a female does give me a litter in, let's say, September, October, I know that she'll do the same thing next year now. But
Yeah.
also, I know that if I skip a year on a female, it doesn't mean she's going to necessarily drop a litter in October if she did 2 years ago.
No.
I have seen a changing in their season where maybe they won't start breeding till October that following year. So you can mess with it, but year to year, I feel like there is a little bit, but when you start getting gap years, I think that's when things can just get all over the place.
Well, like I said, you have everybody that breeds different. Their timing's different. Their temperatures are different. I have a lot of guys that'll drop their temperature down into the 70s to cycle their males and their females. I don't do that. Maybe it's because of the luxury of living in Florida. I don't have to do that.
Well, with some of like the Sonoran stuff, I have heard that the drop down is very necessary, but I also know people that treat them like anything else. And I know we'll be talking about this in my next podcast. We're going to go back to back boas, which I promised I wouldn't do, but I can't help myself. Because, like I said, I've never really believed in temperature cycling with boas.
Yeah.
Just because I've lived in so many different apartments and different this and different houses I wasn't supposed to have snakes. And man, I move around so much. It just always seems to work. And I don't ever feel like my conditions are exactly the same every time, if that makes sense.
So I have a lot of people that ask me how I've had so much success and how I can get females to go every year. And it's very simple and it's so bleak. Just leave them alone. And, these people that, and I'm not aiming this at anybody, but these people that post 100 pictures of their animals locked up and breeding, and they take videos of them and they do this and they do that. And then 6 months later, they call me and be like, man, I'm a girl slowed down. Well, just leave them alone. That's all they want. Leave them alone. You come to my facility during this year and it's the dirtiest you will see it because I don't clean their cages. And they don't want you to. They got their sexy time and they want it dirty and they want it nasty. And that's how it is in the wild. They're not in these nice, clean, white glove cages for breeding.
No. So I agree with that. I do think, and it's rare that either of us send each other a picture of animals breeding, like maybe once or twice a season with all the breeding we do. Because like you said, I typically leave it alone. And I'll be honest, man, like I'm not quick to the draw with cameras. Like so many opportunities missed.
You're not.
No, I never am. And I feel bad sometimes. And I don't know what it is. Like I said, I joke around. I become a recluse every once in a while. But you know what I got to do? I just got to set up a better area to take pictures because it's so hard to get a good boa picture. I always like Jeff Ronnie used that kind of like green moss background. And I thought that green and blue in the background really does complement boa's colors, where a black and white, sometimes I think you lose a lot.
Yeah. So you've seen what I use. I mean, I have that famous piece of driftwood and
Yep.
that thing's 20 years old at least. But I always have something green in the background, whether it be fake plants, whether it be that green rug, whatever, because that contrast actually complements the wood and the grass. So any snake you put on there, no matter what color it is, you're going to see that animal first. Whereas black and white, they're monotone. You're going to look at those first before you see anything else, and it actually drowns the color out of any intensified animal that you're going to put on black and white. So greens, browns, those colors really pull. The blues are really good in boas too, if it's not too much.
No, if it's not too much. And, I hate to tweak these photos too much, but like, the reality is with a lot of the natural tones of pastels and boa constrictors, man, the pictures never do them justice. And there's a lot of other species I can get right, but with boas, especially when it comes to like pinks, I never feel like the camera picks up on the pinks of the animal.
Outside. You got to get them outside in the shade, not in the sun.
I know shade helps a lot. I also know that it's 9 degrees out right now. So essentially,
right
yeah, I would have to plan for 3 or 4 months of the year to go hard and take pictures outside, which luckily in the springtime when you start getting your babies, it's nice enough outside. I mean, our herbs start coming out around that time.
That's when most of my pictures are taken, is in the springtime. And, I get a lot of compliments on my pictures because I focus on them. I'm very passionate about my pictures, and it's one of those things that I enjoy. I love it. But I have the luxury of being in a state that I could do that 10 months out of the year, 11 months out of the year.
So the more I look back at high school about my failures, considering what I'm doing now, I hated science class, even though I loved animals. So I think I dropped those classes as early as possible in high school. Would have benefited me a little bit. And other than that, I took 5 art classes a day, but I would never touch a photography class or any kind of illustrator classes because I thought that was cheating. And now all I need is a nice camera and learn how to use those illustrator programs, Photoshop, and man, would I be in a better place right now. So real opportunity missed for me there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using technology, brother. I'm using a cell phone and whatever the cell phone offers. I don't do any Photoshop. I don't do any editing. I crop. All I do is crop the picture and I post what I have. I had the high-end cameras and I just didn't have the time and the patience to go through everything and edit it and do the coloration and all that stuff. I just buy the nice cell phones. I use a Google Pixel 7 right now, which I'm going to upgrade. And then I have the Samsung 20, whatever. Anything that has the best camera on the market is where I go, not the best cell phone. Best camera.
Same. I always ask for the best or whatever the best camera is. I thought about going Pixel, but I usually just stick with the Samsungs just to not change anything in any way. And I think the Samsung camera is pretty good personally, but I always thought you worked with something a little nicer. Like I thought you actually had a nice professional camera at one point.
No. None of my pictures are taken with a professional camera.
Okay, love that. I don't know. I must have mixed you up in a conversation I thought we had where you were showing me a camera, but it must have been somebody else. No, that's tight. I love that more for you, honestly. And like you said, in the right settings, you can do a lot of really great things with a cell phone.
Yeah. Technology is a beautiful thing sometimes, especially to smartphones.
I don't mind technology. I will say that I say a lot of old people things a lot, and I fight certain things, but like, even people that make pushbacks on AI, I think there's probably benefits to AI that we can figure out, that can customize your life in some way. I think I've heard of like even some AI, I had mentioned an AI. Let me try it again. I think I was talking to, I don't think it was John. I think it was actually Darian after he got MORPH Market. And I had mentioned that it'd be really unique if there's a way to create an algorithm where a breeder can have his collection uploaded into his MORPH Market page, and the algorithm would tell him his best pairings to do based on what the market did the previous year on MORPH Market. Animals that sold out fast might recommend you make it. The only problem with a thing like that is if it tells everyone to do the same fucking thing and everybody makes the same yellow stink.
Bro, true. I'm old school. I don't use the AI stuff. I've seen it on snakes, and I just think if you're going to be selling or promoting or letting somebody see one of your animals, you need to be as real as possible. And I mean, AI does some really cool stuff. I'm not taking away from anything from that, but when you're dealing with sales of animals, you want to be as natural as possible. You want that customer to be like, man, this is way better than your photo. You know, you never want to
No.
have that reverse comment like, man, this is nothing like the photo. I was expecting much more. You know what I mean?
Well, and this is a reality, but if you know how to use AI properly, you could have it probably answering your morph market messages for you, because there's always a lot of generic responses that go into a lot of this. I hate to say, you could probably have it do a thing like that. I mean, that thing's practically a secretary right now.
Yeah, he's done well with that. I mean, the technology that has been advanced since he bought that site has been, he's done a lot of good stuff with it. I think
Have you?
one of my pages has AI answering some questions on it or whatever.
Okay. We don't have to spend too much time on this, but have you played with the morph market shipping yet?
No, I have not. No, I have not.
So, I'm reluctant to, but I did play with it a little bit this past week. It came up on the podcast last night. There's a real convenience factor to it. As soon as the animal is marked sold to the customer, you hit one button, and then it says box size, weight, and how many animals are in the box. You hit done. It goes to your shopping cart, and the tracking number goes right to your customer, and you're done. No more writing stuff down, no more copy and paste, no more getting it from here and there. I hate it. I'm a Reptiles Express guy, and I'm going to stick with the mics, and they're always going to get a portion of my business. But I will say, for maybe some of the packages that have to go to California or maybe a little further, I might consider using Morph Market a lot more for that, just to offset that cost.
They just send you a label through the email?
Yeah, dude, it's fucking cake. You get it all on your phone. It can go right. Actually, it goes right to your printer. You can literally print right from your phone, right from Morph Market.
Wow,
So
I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that option.
play with it a little bit. Like I said, I was reluctant because of my loyalties. Really, little Mike bought me a pair of corduroy pants one time. They were real fucking nice, and I haven't taken them off in like 7 years. And that got me. That was all it took. But like I said, people are going to go where they want, and I know there's always going to be loyalty, and there's plenty of money to go around. But when you get to messing with it, there is a real convenience factor to it.
Well, that's what people are looking for in the future, is convenience.
Yeah, and the only other thing I said, and this is the end of the shameless plug, but when I woke up at 8 a.m., I checked my email, and anything that did get delayed was already in my email. Let me know. I had one email with a few boxes on it because Indianapolis really struggled this past week.
Oh yeah,
I
it's
think
the holidays, bud.
Yeah, I know. I should have known with Cyber Mondays, but we've been running a couple sales ourselves, and man, I'll tell you, you get real pushy people sometimes on shipping this time of the year. You let them know what's best, and then they let you know what's best for them. So there's a balancing act, I guess you could say. And, whether it's positioning the heat pad underneath the animal, on the sidewall, above, you can ship this time of the year. And man, I'll be straight with you. I think I've been shipping year round for about 7 years now. Shutting down for the holidays, of course, but never shutting down for a full month or two. I have literally not lost an animal in over 7 years.
And you're not going to. And I mean, people that have this thing about you can't ship in the winter, I mean, when you're doing hub to hub and you're boxing these animals the correct way, they're never going to see that cold.
No.
That's
if
the
you
whole
do it
point
the
of hub to
correct way.
hub, and they're not going to insure it if you don't do that.
Yeah, it's, I will say, and, shipping's scary. Like when you first started shipping in this industry, man, like it was panic mode. You overthought things. Sometimes you overthought things so much that you did so much that you actually put the animal in harm's way.
Yeah.
So, there is a learning curve on this. I wish there was more information out this for people on little things you could do. Like, me referencing that I look at what the temperatures are from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. And depending what the temperatures are when that box is going to be there, sometimes that heat pack underneath is good. But if it's going to be like in the 50s or 60s that morning, that heat pack underneath might actually be way too much for the animal.
Yep.
There should be more of that information out there. And like I said, there is a learning curve there. But like I said, I ship year round. I've never really had a problem. But also, ball pythons are bulletproof. I will say, if it's a nicer boa, I will ask to wait till the temperature's a little nicer.
Yeah, same here. I have the same situation, is where I wait till we get a 2 to 4 day warm up until I have to ship. I won't ship in 19 to 20 degree weather.
No. So with your with your collection being as diverse as it is, what is it? What does it take in an animal to want to buy something new? Jeez, I'm listening.
You all right?
I'm never okay. It's like the first thing I've ever done. No, let me try that again. You have so many animals. Why buy another? Like, what does it take in that animal to want that animal?
For me to buy a snake?
Yeah, for you to, because you got a lot of stuff.
Oh,
You could be busy for years with your collection.
I'm always looking for that new cutting edge, pattern morph. It's just not out there. I mean, we create so many cool animals in collection in house. It's really hard to buy something from somebody. I look for more to enhance what I have, like coloration. A lot of snakes coming in from the UK and Germany, they enhance coloration that we have here. So we try to just double up on that. But when it comes to new morphs or new animals, we don't invest in any of that stuff.
Okay. Have you are there any like pastel lineages that go around in like the Central American stuff or the Nicaraguan stuff or the Honduran stuff, or is it all like
No,
mutations at this point?
yeah, nothing pure. We just add that in from the Colombian traits, the pastel dream, the Coops pastel, the lipstick, the red panther, all that red rum, all that stuff. We just added into the Central American and enhanced because your centrals are going to be naturally darker than the Colombian. So you're going to have to pull a lot more color out of those animals to get them brighter. So you have to add a lot more to them to do that.
Okay. Um, have you done that a lot already? Like, have you put that effort in?
Yeah. So yeah, check this out. So this is a platinum T positive sun glow red line Aztec Inca. I know it's a lot, but this animal's almost 2 years old, and look at the color that it's holding. Watch it being shed.
Yeah. Well, it's always that chance.
She's gonna be in shed, I guarantee
Good angle, buddy. No, that's hot. Well, how long have we had Inca?
2011.
Okay. It took us a while to really figure out what to do with it. I mean, don't get me wrong, the T positives were cool early on, but like what we're doing with it now is just, it's one of the best genes in boas.
Hands down, it's definitely my top three. Well, because when it came out, everybody thought it was a motley. It was just a glorified motley or another Central American motley. And a lot of people don't know. Do you know who the original person to bring this animal in was?
Was it Snake Keeper?
No.
Okay. I would have thought that.
They bought it from Jack Briggs.
Okay. And that was 2011? Or was that when they proved it out?
2000, end of 2010, 11, I think. Oh, it might have been earlier than that. So
Okay.
I think I might have been way earlier than that, but I know there was two that came in. There was a red one and there was a black one, and they were both males. And Jack had some problems. He had to get rid of them, so he sold them to Dan and Colette. And then I'm pretty sure when babies were born, they went to Germany. I think their first couple sales were to Germany. And that's kind of where they stayed, and they kind of worked them as the motley. And then years and years later, people are realizing that these are not motleys, and the contrast of these animals compared to a motley are through the roof.
Yeah. So by the way, that animal, unbelievable looking. I feel like sometimes you really can't see the color, but
No.
really phenomenal oranges on that.
Yeah, and in person, she's way better. Like I said, this is just a combination with the Inca, the Aztec, with the T positive. And we have these in T negative as well. And they're stunning because the T negative is more of a white and yellow rather than an orange and a cream like this. But the cool part about these is that the oranges, you just don't see them anywhere. You don't see an orange boa anywhere. I mean, and this is orange. This is kind of like an orange peel orange. This isn't like a tan. This is orange. And
No, for sure.
But the Inca and the Aztec are a big part of this. Like some of our Sunglow Incas are just mind blowing. You know, the reds and the golds and stuff like that. But the combination with the Inca and the Aztec is absolutely crazy. You know, we did the first Inca Aztec back in I think 2018. We did the Red Paradise Inca Aztec, and that
Okay, were you
came
the
out
first
purple
one?
and yellow. So it was just a really cool combination that we didn't know would look good. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. And again, that animal, the glow on is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, phenomenal.
So have you replicated that multiple times yet? Or is that going to be the chance to start replicating it now?
Absolutely. So we have 2 pairings of that going on right now as we speak, with fire. So
okay,
that
like
snake, that snake, we actually have a T positive platinum red line Inca Aztec fire that's breeding. It's breeding an IMG because I want to see what it's going to do. I want to see if that fire is going to make that black IMG turn white, you know, with the white sides.
Yeah.
And these are pure Central Americans. These are all Central American based. Even the IMGs are like 75% Central American. So,
right.
Yeah.
So I got a bunch of things I want to say about Inca. Well, I'll say it really quick. You know, sometimes, you know, I say even like in ball pythons, when Spot Nose found Clown, like it started doing great things. Like, you know, Clown was cool, but Spot Nose really took it somewhere else. You know, Inca and Aztec together gives you so much pattern to work on. And I feel like that's always one of the things I hate on bows when I make the joke of ladder back circle tail. You're working with these limited lines. I would love to not even worry about incorporating another pattern to that at that point and just see almost everything you could do in boas with Inca and Aztec in it, because I think a lot of them are going to be bangers. Like,
yeah,
I want to see it all with those 2 genes in it, because again, you get so much nice pattern from that.
Yeah. Here's another one. Here's a Inca. What is this? This is a BWC Sunglow Jungle Inca IMG.
All right. By the way, I love the BWC. You know, it's almost tragic for BWC that we found out it was allelic with sharp. It really fucked it up for about 10, 15 years. It's a cool snake. Yeah, I like that you're just working with just BWC.
The BWC is just so much of a bolder coloration than the Paradigm. I love the Paradigm. Don't get me wrong. I'm not down in it, but I think the BWC by itself is just a much more better T positive.
Here's the thing. I think it's better than VPI. Like, if I was going to just start over today, but again, the tragedy that it was allelic, it got overshadowed by VPI because Paradigm was kind of the poor man's VPI because everyone had sharp stock at that point when we found out about it.
Yeah.
And you could just go get a het bull and caramel. I did that myself. I had like 4 snakes to my name.
Yeah.
But
I remember.
It's really, if Boa and Caramel was just let loose to do its own thing for years, it almost would have been better off. Like I said, it took us too long to come back to this to separate it out from the whole Paradigm project.
I agree.
Yeah, but no, I love the richness of that because, like I said, that orange tone is very different than anything you get in a VPI.
I wonder what this would look like in a blood.
I would have thought you already had something like that brewing because I thought so, man. Yeah, because there was stock from all that Paradigm blood stuff for years. I remember seeing. So like,
I do, but I actually have a BWC blood jungle, like a real without Paradigm.
And you know what's another thing I like about that animal? It's got that real CAT positive look to it, even though it's Colombian.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Dave, here you go.
Okay. And I don't know why. I know I'm supposed to guess. This is something blood related, right?
This is that BWC jungle blood.
Okay. I like how different the jungle pattern is in that. Does the BWC produce a lot of jungles with that kind of pattern, or is that kind of like a special animal?
BWC has a lot of influence on this for sure. Yeah. With the jungle pattern and the jungle contrast. But look at the BWC, how it kind of oranges everything out rather than, pink or red.
Yeah.
She's like a really super creamy orange, light creamy orange.
So if you had to pick to go blood BWC or blood VPI right now.
Oh, blood BWC. I have both of them, and I like this better.
Really? Okay.
Here, I'll show you.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing, because I will say I was very impressed with the VPI blood stuff I've seen so far. It seemed like a real no-brainer, but again, we were still making blood call stuff and blood sharp stuff for so long that it took us a little too long to get to the VPIs.
So, unfortunately, this has IMG. Well, not unfortunately, but this has IMG in it. So, this is going to be a little bit different, and they're much darker than the BWC. Yeah. Same snake, but one is BWC, one is VPI. This is going to be a much darker animal, and this is what everybody's chasing right now: is the VPI, Sunglow Blood IMG, where these are becoming on the back seat. They're people aren't looking at these, and this is a much better looking animal, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that, but I think certain things, especially on recessive projects, we're going to mix the ingredients up a couple times. We're going to get to the same angle, but like you right now or somebody right now could go black-eyed anery BWC stuff, and that'd be its own realm. It's going to look completely different from the VPI stuff, and I'm sure there's somebody out there, I'd like to hope, working on that.
I'm breeding a Black Devil Ghost Motley to a Paradigm Inca right now.
Right, tight. So that's another thing too. So you've been hearing about like the boa testing coming up for like recessives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so you heard about those tests possibly coming up. I was kind of talking what genes I thought would have to be tested first. I figured VPI because a lot of people have VPI in their projects, so why not do that? I think blood would probably be my second one because the relevance of blood going into a lot of projects right now. And third one, honestly, I don't know. What would you go with the third gene, or what would your top three be that you want to see right out the gate?
For genetic testing?
Yeah, if that option was put out there.
Anery lines to see what's compatible and what's not.
Okay.
I mean, is type 2 anery compatible with black-eyed? Is type 2 anery compatible with the silver bullet and yada 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 yada? The carbon and the black-eyed and all this bullshit. Is it? We need, if there is a genetic test out there, which I don't know if there is, let's define what it is. I mean, there's certain people that don't like black-eyed. There's certain people that don't like type 2. Give these people an option to work with their projects.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point. I actually would have never really thought about the anery thing, but you're right. There is a lot of mystery in aneries. Is there enough of a sample size out there? Like, you need people to actually have a lot of like stock in the animal. Like, it can't be like we send in a couple sheds. It's got to be like 10, 20, 30, 40 black-eyeds. A lot. Yeah, like I said, generations.
Mm-hmm.
Is there collections built out there around these individual anery genes where they can contribute enough to the test to get it rolling?
I don't know. Myself, I do. And I'm sure I know Chesla's got a lot of stuff. There's a couple, Roscoe's got a lot of stuff. I know there's a handful of guys out there that can contribute to this testing, and this, I guess it would be considered a study for the anery gene, because it's going to answer a lot of questions.
Yeah.
A lot of questions that new breeders have. And here, I wanted to touch on this real quick too. A lot of people are, I see a lot of people bashing new breeders that come on and ask questions. I'm out of all the groups. I don't get in those groups anymore. I just don't have the time. But how are they going to learn if we don't help them? they're coming to us for guidance. They're coming to these breeders for guidance, and they just belittle them. And it's one of those things where it's like, and they turn around and they're like, I can't believe these guys don't know how to breed boas. Well, how the hell are they going to learn if you don't teach them?
Yeah.
We're advocates, Dave. If you like it or not, you have kids, you don't. The next generation is going to replace us. And if we don't teach them how to do this and educate them, educate, don't hate. You know what I mean? I'm just so tired of these people that come to shows and be like, can you believe this guy? I'm like, then fucking teach him. Why are you bashing him when you can educate him?
Well, different parts of the community are always going to be built in different ways. I will say that I've always felt like the boa community has been a pretty tight-knit community. I always make the joke about like how at Tinley, everybody in the boa community said, please put us all right next to each other in the exact same aisle so we can all compete against each other in a sense.
Yeah.
I thought that was neat because that's kind of the mindset of the community. But, when you talk about like new blood coming in, people working with these animals, the reality is we don't always get a good mentor, but there is always one person that brings us in.
Yeah.
So you're right. When you have maybe a bad mentor and then there's not the proper education out there, yeah, there's a good chance you're going to fail. And I hate to say it, a lot of people that get into this do fail. I do want to see as many people succeed as possible, but people's failure sometimes is what keeps a lot of other people in business in a sense, to where, there's not too many people in the pool. But no, like honestly, go ahead, man.
No, you're right. And I get that. That's justified. I think my rant was that these people that want to be taught how to breed boas, they can't find somebody that they could trust to help them, without lead them in the wrong direction. And I'm not saying I'm for everybody, but I don't mind helping anybody.
You know what these guys should do? They should go get the Jeremy Stone DVD on how to breed boas.
Yes, they should.
I know that thing's still out there. It's good too. Because you know what? I bring that up because Jeremy's been posting lately. Did you notice that?
I have noticed a few different times he's been posting. He's coming out of the woodworks. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, no, it's cool to see, man. You know what I like about his videos? It reminded me of the videos we made like back in 2005 because we'd always have like an animal in our hand. Like we never talked. It was always handling the big snake. So like it really kind of takes you back. But no, I thought it was cool seeing him come out of the woodwork. When breeders get quiet for a little while, it's kind of a bummer, especially if you're not talking to them very often. And not that me and Jeremy really had a good relationship. We had a relationship. If I called, he answered. I always enjoy talking bows with him, but yeah, no, like I said, it's kind of cool seeing him coming out and posting again.
Yeah, Jeremy and I are friends. He's an OG. I consider him an OG. We kind of got started real similar. I was a few years after him, but he's a good dude, man. I mean, yeah, he's had his tribulations and trials and problems, but who hasn't?
No,
he's still breeding boas. He's still producing fire stuff. And
and we all have fire because of him.
We have fire because of him. Regardless of how he got here, we have it because of him.
He's an OG. He's a gangster for doing it, man.
It's all that matters.
Cheers to that, man. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Man, I had something I was going to say there. I got all sidetracked going cheers. What was the last thing we said before I got sidetracked?
We were talking about Jeremy.
Yeah. Well, I think I got sidetracked before then. There might not be any bringing it back. Wow.
Hey, that's old age kicking in, bro. That's old age.
Well, it might be botulism. I was eating old marshmallows a couple of days ago, and I heard that one of the things could be memory loss or just loss of thought. So it could have been.
You got you.
So, the one thing that I brought up coming into this podcast and kind of going right into the whole virus talk was nobody talks about this kind of stuff, especially if you're new in the hobby. And, we said that right away. So, you're coming to of like, where do you get educated, like to do this right? Who's taking those phone calls, man? Because, I will say that the first time I ever called Jeff Ronnie forever ago, he answered, like, didn't even hesitate. And he had a conversation with me and he didn't even know who I was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people are answering the phone anymore. Like, I don't know where new people even feel welcome to make a phone call if they needed help.
Very few, but you got to understand that's not because of the older generation not answering the phone. That's because the newer generation doesn't want to pick up the phone. So
there's the truth there. Yeah.
They want to text or they want to email or whatever. it's just one of those things. I'd rather talk to you on the phone than you text me, only because that's where I'm from. That's what I did. You know, I had a beeper. I didn't have a cell phone. So it was one of those things where these kids in this younger generation only know texting. They don't want to pick up the phone and call you. They're uncomfortable. But
Yeah.
that's the debate.
Um,
You know, that's the thing, is like, you need to call me so I can help you. I'm not going to text you 1,000 things how to do it when I can tell you how to do it.
yeah. No, I don't mind the phone call. I love being on the phone, to be honest with you. The only reason I haven't really used my phone the last few years is I couldn't. It's so awful out here.
Right.
It's just
Yeah, I know.
never works. It kills me, man. And then I'm on the road, and I veg out on the road now. It's that one time where nothing's really happening. I just shut it down. And I used to make a lot of phone calls. I even said, like, a lot of the conversations I have when I do these podcasts are because of conversations I have from random people in the hobby, people I talk to all the
For
time.
sure. Yeah.
When I stop making those phone calls, I don't have fresh material anymore. Like, it takes away from what I'm trying to do, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So I need to make those phone calls more. But the gap in our phone calls makes this conversation a very original conversation, because this is the same shit I'll be talking on the phone about.
For sure.
But so when people come up to you new in the hobby and talk about how they want to invest in boas, is there a direction you turn them in, or do you say, pick one thing out so I can tell you about everything around that one idea?
Both. So you have your
Okay.
people that come to you and they say, "Hey, I got a bunch of money. I want to breed boas." They scare me.
Yeah.
So you have the other person that'll come up and be like, "Hey, I have a little bit of money, but I really like the Incas and I want to focus on the Incas." So then those are the type of people that I want to reel in, because they're project people. They're going to focus, they're going to pay attention, they're going to listen. If you don't listen to me, I don't have time for you. I'm too old. I didn't mean it like that. I'm getting
Yeah.
too old to
Old
the
enough,
points
bud.
where my time is very valuable and my life is more important than sitting on the phone with you and you going to talk to 15 other people after I'm done with you. If you
Yeah.
want me to teach you, I'll teach you. That's what I'm here to do. But you have to listen. And that's basically what it comes down to. So it's on what they want to do, and I will guide them in that direction. You could lead a horse to water, but you ain't gonna make him drink. So that's that kind of thing I follow.
So I feel like every year I have some other idea I want to tell somebody to try, especially when it comes to new people coming in. I never really always know how to guide, but I will say anybody who invested in any of the IMG Aztec stuff I did a few years ago with I said that IMG VPI Tech Aztec. If they bought those animals, I did say that Inca would be a nice possibility for it if they had the right Inca.
100%.
Um, and that was a few years ago we had those conversations, and even I have holdbacks to do that for myself right now. So I do think that Inca, if I was coming in right now, I think it'd be a pretty safe bet. And you showing off your bow and caramel stuff right now, we completely skip that in this community, and we'd all probably come roaring back if the right animals were made.
I agree.
Yeah, that happens in ball pythons all the time in recessives.
Yeah.
Certain things get completely kicked to the wayside, and honestly, in the bow community, when we have so few new things coming in, you really again have to find a way to mix the old stuff together in a new way to get more hype around it. Yeah.
The Inca is my pick for a new person coming in, or even a seasoned vet. Focus on those projects because they're only going to make what you have better. Um, we've been holding back a lot of Inca stuff. We have a lot of Inca stuff, probably one of the largest collection of Incas in the world.
Yeah.
We're going to be releasing a lot of stuff in the next couple weeks. We have some 2 and 3 year old females that we're going to be releasing because we have 20 and 30 of them. So it's like, we can only do so much with these projects, and the other ones are going to be left on the back burner. So we have to release some of these out into the public so they can be available as well. Focus on Incas, man. I'm telling you, brother, you have a really nice collection of diversity, and your Incas will make your stuff pop. And
Yeah.
the thing is it's not just going to be a valuable animal. It's going to be an amazing looking animal. When you have value and you have color and contrast, those are hard to get in the same thing. The Inca does it for everything. The hypos, the motleys, the jungles, the raptor. Anything you add Inca into is just sprinkle it into everything you have.
Yeah. So with Inca, I always put it as adding canvas. Adding that thick pattern gives you so much more of a way to manipulate it. Where with these shoestring patterns that we work with, limitations on it. The fact that you could put hypo in Inca, and it really doesn't even reduce the pattern down that much. It just completely changes the color. Yeah. So how do the super Incas do? And I don't think I've seen a lot of those over the years.
So, and this is my opinion on supers of everything from the detrimental to the motleys to the jungles and all that stuff. Anytime, all right. I explain this to a lot of people. You got to look at genetics like a rubber band. A rubber band at rest is at its strongest point. As soon as you start stretching that rubber band, eventually it's going to get to a point where it's going to pop. I look at supers that way. There are viable supers and there are non-viable supers. So when you're dealing with anything in the super form, you have to treat it differently. You have to feed it differently. You have to raise it differently because it's behind the game when it's born, no matter what kind of super it's from. I mean, the only really true super out there is a super hypo. It's a dominant form. So everything else is a genetic super. Your motleys, your jungles, your raptors, your all your other super forms that are out there, your Aztecs. And a lot of these animals have problems, whether it be neurological, whether it be their insides grow faster than their outsides, tongue flicking, and it's all super forms that have these problems.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to be careful what you want to get into. Like I had somebody say, "Hey, I want to breed Aztec to Aztec." Well, go ahead, but you're going to get some supers that might not do well, and some might do just fine. But they didn't want to play that 50-50 game. You know what I'm saying? Like scorias. So, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't want a scoria because of the wobble. It's just like a spider ball python. I mean, I've seen my buddy Donnie has one of the biggest collections of scorias in the world, and he produces some of the most, the largest litters, the biggest litters, the healthiest litters out of scorias. It's just, I wouldn't even consider it a neurological problem. I just say it's something in the animal, just like a spider ball python.
Well, do you know the science behind the spider ball python and why it wobbles?
No, and I'm assuming it's just like the jag and all that other stuff too. It's
skull formation, ear canal
formation.
Yeah, where the ear canal is, it's built different. I believe it's a little wider, and it causes the animal to have a degree of wobble. Now, that could be the same reason why some of these other species have their wobble, but something in development. So if there was a vet out there that had scorias, he could actually x-ray the wobblies next to the non-wobblies, and if he could possibly see a difference in them, and I don't know.
And it makes total sense that it could be some kind of physical problem rather than a neurological. And I didn't even know that. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, if there's something to do with the bone structure in the ear canal, yeah, it could definitely have something to do with the wobble. And now it can't be fixed because it's something that they're born with, but and only half of them retain that.
So, with species that the palmetto corn snake, it's the eyeball gene. This past year, honestly, I had my eggs in there on sphagnum. I put them in the baby room for my ball pythons and boas. Inconsistent temperature between 76 to 81 on some days. I actually had no eyeball gene whatsoever with my males, maybe one, and I produced a lot of palmettos. I know back in the day they talked with the spider ball python that maybe you incubated at a lower temperature that was going to help, like 86. The problem is with live bearing animals is there's not a lot of tweaking with a gravid female because you don't want to mess with those temperatures.
No, and she will do her own temperature controlling herself.
Yeah, so there's really nothing you can do with that kind of stuff. I do think you kind of roll the dice, and this might have been a rumor. I hear if you breed a wobbly scoria, the babies come out non-wobbly. If you breed a non-wobbly scoria, you get more wobbly babies.
No.
I just heard that one time.
I mean, I've seen some of the rarest scorias in the world that don't wobble. and you've got a lot of genes packed in there. And then I've seen normal scorias that just do backflips. So it's like, I think it has something to do with just the level of, it could be that, that inner ear. I mean, it's a very good possibility. But I mean, that would be great to study. That'd be great to get a vet on board to say, hey, I'm willing to do some pro bono stuff, to help the hobby out.
Yeah. You should get a couple done, because after that we can do the jag, and then we can do the Enigma leopard gecko. There's plenty of
I bet you they're
wobbly
all
animals.
very similar to the same. It's probably something to do, like you said, with an inner ear or something to do cranial. It makes total sense, complete sense.
Yeah.
But we almost been on here 2 hours, bro.
Yeah, no, we always call it around 2 hours, man. Trust me, it's 11 o'clock where you're at. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I'm exhausted and my phone's at 10%. So
no, that's fair, man. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you coming on and doing this. So, I like boa content. We're definitely gonna have to sneak in some more. Like I said, Warren and me are gonna do Rich Eiley in the next week. I wouldn't mind getting like a Jeremy Stone on with you, or maybe like I was talking Doug Matuzak with Mac Robinette the other day. Like, I kind of want to make a circle around some of the OGs.
who's a really good boa guy and he's a sleeper is Michael Roscoe.
Well, I told you to invite Roscoe on tonight. You chose not to, buddy.
Listen, I'm not gonna play this whole I was busy shit. I was busy.
No, that's fair.
I'm gonna call him and we'll circle back around. Next couple episodes we'll get with you. I want to get him on. He's a really good friend of mine, and we've done a lot of cool stuff in the past, and he has a wealth of knowledge. So does Jeremy. I'll talk to Jeremy too and see what we could do with that. But there's a couple other guys I can bring on here too that'll blow your mind when it comes to boas.
No, for sure. And by the way, that weird boa that Jeremy had, I think they called it the Pearl.
The Pearl. Okay, yes, the Pearl.
Yeah.
Hey, I had the P right. Pixel, Pearl. It was close.
Yeah, close enough. But okay, well, like I said, definitely want to do something again soon. I'm sure there's some stuff I forgot to cover with you, but happy breeding, man. Keep sending me pictures. Hopefully we both have a good season.
You too, my man. Fingers crossed for you. Always good talking to you, and I'll talk to my boys, and we'll see what we can do soon.
Hey, appreciate it again, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Have a good night.
Peace out. Okay. Well, that wraps another episode. Delbono, you can X whenever you want. You don't have to sit around for this.
All right, man. I'll talk to y'all later.
Later, bud. But again, appreciate you guys coming out yet again. Bring it up at the end of the episode. You made it this long. Hit the like button, subscribe. Eventually, I'm going to start paying attention to that. I want to see a little something happen there. But again, appreciate you guys coming out. It means a lot to me. Peace out.